Why is China furious with the Philippines over Taiwan? It's not just politics or history. There's a deeper fear at play, one that could shake the entire region. To truly grasp the depth of China's anger and the intensity of its reactions, we need to start with the One China principle, a concept that sits at the very heart of Chinese foreign policy and national identity. This principle isn't just a diplomatic slogan. It's a deeply held belief that shapes how China sees itself and its place in the world. The One China principle asserts that there is only one China, and that Taiwan is an inseparable part of it. For the Chinese government, this is non-negotiable. It's written into official documents, repeated in speeches, and taught in schools from a young age. For Beijing, Taiwan isn't just a piece of territory on a map. It represents a core part of the nation's history, pride, and future. The idea of reunification is seen as a sacred mission, a matter of restoring national dignity after a century of perceived humiliation and division. Any suggestion, even a subtle one, that another country, especially a close neighbor like the Philippines, might treat Taiwan as a separate entity, is viewed by Beijing as a direct and dangerous challenge to its sovereignty. This isn't just about politics, it's about the very fabric of what it means to be Chinese. Official contact, diplomatic engagement, or even military cooperation with Taiwan is, in China's eyes, nothing less than foreign interference in its internal affairs. These actions are seen as attempts to undermine China's unity and weaken its position on the global stage. The Philippines, for many years, recognized and respected this principle, maintaining a careful diplomatic balance. But in recent times, as Manila has increased its engagement with Taiwan, whether through official meetings, trade, or security cooperation, Beijing has interpreted these moves as a serious betrayal. For China, the One China principle is not just a matter of policy, it's a question of sovereignty, national pride, and even destiny. The Chinese public, fueled by decades of patriotic education, sees any threat to this principle as an attack on the nation itself. Every move by the Philippines that appears to complicate or delay the goal of reunification with Taiwan is interpreted as a hostile act, one that could have serious consequences for regional stability and China's own sense of security. That's why every step the Philippines takes, no matter how small, is met with such intense suspicion, anger, and sometimes even threats from Beijing. For China, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the world is watching how this principle shapes the future of Asia. China sees the Philippines as preparing for a Taiwan conflict, which it views as a provocation. The proximity of Philippine islands to Taiwan makes them strategically vital. If the US uses Philippine bases to support Taiwan, it would upend China's military plans. China interprets military upgrades and joint drills as the Philippines becoming a US outpost. Even humanitarian plans, like evacuating Filipino workers, are seen as cover for military coordination. Every Philippine action is filtered through deep suspicion in Beijing. This cycle of mistrust makes the region more volatile. Officially, the Philippines follows the One China policy, but behind the scenes, ties with Taiwan are growing. Military leaders from both sides meet quietly to discuss security. Taiwanese officers now observe major US-Philippine military exercises. Joint Coast Guard patrols in the Bashi Channel are happening, monitoring waters crucial to both nations. Intelligence sharing and policy changes, like visa-free entry for Taiwanese, deepen the relationship. These steps make it easier for officials and military personnel to coordinate. To China, these aren't minor gestures, they're a pattern of defiance. The Philippines is seen as deliberately strengthening ties with Taipei. This undermines the foundation of its relationship with Beijing. Geography forces the Philippines into the Taiwan conflict. Its northern islands are closer to Taiwan than many realize. Any war over Taiwan would spill into Philippine territory, missiles, refugees, and chaos. President Marcos Jr. admits neutrality is impossible. Proximity makes involvement inevitable. Military buildup in the north is about self-preservation, not provocation. Upgraded bases and more troops are meant to defend sovereignty and prepare for evacuations. The Philippines feels trapped, ignore the threat and risk disaster, or prepare and anger China. It chooses preparation, seeing inaction as the greater risk. Geography leaves it no other choice. Beyond strategy, the Philippines must protect up to 200,000 citizens working in Taiwan. Evacuating them in a crisis would be a massive, complex operation. Recent military drills with the US have practiced these evacuations. For Manila, this is about duty to its people, not just geopolitics, but to China, these preparations look like war planning with America. Coordinating with Taiwan is a necessity for evacuation, but Beijing sees it as a violation. The Philippines walks a tightrope, protecting its people while infuriating China. Human lives drive these decisions, even as they fuel diplomatic tensions. The Philippines' shift toward Taiwan and the US is a reaction to China's aggression in the South China Sea. Chinese ships have harassed Filipino vessels and blocked resupply missions. Attempts at appeasement failed. Pressure only increased. Now, Manila believes strength and alliances are the only answer. Taiwan is seen as a strategic buffer. If China controls it, the Philippines is next. A friendly Taiwan keeps China's military at bay. China's assertiveness has backfired, pushing Manila to seek new partners. In trying to intimidate, Beijing has created the coalition it feared. At the heart of China's growing frustration and anxiety is the renewed US-Philippines alliance, a partnership that has taken on new urgency in recent years. This alliance, once seen as a relic of the Cold War, is now at the center of a rapidly shifting balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. For Beijing, the strengthening of ties between Washington and Manila is not just a diplomatic setback. It's a direct challenge to its ambitions in the region, especially as tensions over Taiwan and the South China Sea continue to escalate. The Mutual Defense Treaty, signed decades ago, has suddenly become more relevant than ever. It means that if either the US or the Philippines is attacked, both nations could be drawn into conflict together. This pact, once dormant, now serves as a powerful deterrent, signaling to China that any aggressive move could trigger a much larger confrontation involving the world's most powerful military. Under new agreements, the US now has access to more Philippine military bases than ever before, including several strategically located near Taiwan. These bases are not just symbolic, they provide the US with critical forward positions, allowing rapid deployment of troops, aircraft, and equipment in the event of a crisis. For China, this expanded American presence is a game changer, dramatically increasing the risks and costs of any military action in the region. Chinese military planners are watching these developments with growing alarm. In Beijing's war rooms, analysts pore over satellite images and intelligence reports, trying to assess how these new US positions could be used in a potential conflict over Taiwan. The fear is clear. These bases could serve as launch pads for American forces, making it much harder for China to achieve its objectives quickly or without significant losses. The deployment of advanced US missile defense systems in the Philippines has further raised the stakes. Systems like the Patriot missile batteries can intercept incoming threats, protect key assets, and even project power deep into contested areas. Their presence sends a strong message to China. Any attempt to use force will be met with formidable resistance, backed by cutting-edge technology and a determined alliance. For China, this transforms the Philippines from a peripheral player into a central launch pad for US military power in Asia. The archipelago's location, stretching across vital sea lanes and close to Taiwan, gives the US unprecedented reach. Every new base, every new deployment, tightens the strategic noose around China's ambitions, making any move in the region far riskier than before. But the Philippines isn't just relying on the US, it's also forging deeper ties with other regional powers like India and Japan. These new partnerships are expanding the anti-China coalition, creating a web of alliances that further complicate Beijing's calculations. Joint projects, intelligence sharing, and coordinated diplomacy are all part of a broader strategy to counterbalance China's growing influence. Regular joint military exercises with these partners send a clear signal to China. The region is united and prepared to defend its interests. These drills, involving troops, ships, and aircraft from multiple countries, demonstrate a level of coordination and resolve that Beijing cannot ignore. For Chinese leaders, the sense of encirclement is becoming all too real. What began as a bilateral issue between China and the Philippines has now grown into a global concern. The world is watching, and international leaders are increasingly involved, turning the South China Sea and Taiwan into flashpoints with worldwide implications. The stakes have never been higher, and the pressure on China is mounting from all sides. For Beijing, this is the ultimate nightmare. A united front of powerful nations, working together to block its ambitions and contain its rise. The renewed US-Philippines alliance is just the beginning of a much larger challenge facing China in the years ahead. So what is China's ultimate fear? To truly understand the depth of China's anger, we need to look beyond the headlines and examine the underlying anxieties that drive its leaders. At the heart of the issue is a profound sense of vulnerability, an anxiety that the balance of power in Asia could tip irreversibly against Beijing. It's not just about the visible US support for the Philippines or the joint military exercises that make the news. What truly keeps Chinese officials up at night is the possibility that, in the event of a conflict over Taiwan, the Philippines would allow US forces to use its territory as a launchpad for military operations. This scenario would transform the Philippines from a regional partner into a frontline state, directly involved in a war that could reshape the entire region. Peacetime access to bases is one thing, but the leap to active combat operations is a game changer. It's the difference between being a bystander and becoming a central player in a high-stakes conflict. If the Philippines crosses that line, it would be seen by China as a direct combatant, crossing what Beijing considers its brightest, most inviolable red line. This is not just a diplomatic squabble, it's a potential trigger for open war. Such a move would be interpreted as an act of war, and in the eyes of Chinese leaders, an unforgivable betrayal by a neighbor. The diplomatic fallout would be immediate, but the military consequences could be catastrophic. The northern bases in Luzon have become powerful symbols of this fear. Their proximity to Taiwan and the Chinese mainland makes them strategically vital, and in Beijing's view, dangerously provocative. Every new upgrade, every fresh defense agreement, and every construction project at these bases is seen by China as another step toward a scenario it dreads: encirclement and containment by US-led alliances. China's fury is rooted in this cold military calculation. If US forces can operate freely from Philippine bases, any attempt by China to invade Taiwan could be met with overwhelming resistance. The entire calculus of a Taiwan invasion changes, making success far less certain for Beijing. That's why the pressure, the warnings, and the harsh rhetoric from Beijing are so intense. These are not just diplomatic gestures, they are desperate attempts to prevent a strategic nightmare from becoming reality. The stakes could not be higher. For China, it's about national security and regional dominance. For the Philippines, it's about sovereignty and survival. And for the world, it's about the risk of a conflict that could draw in major powers and reshape the global order. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and keep questioning the headlines. The story is far from over.